The remains of a man discovered in two different locations on two different dates have been identified. Back in October 2006, a kayaker on Mill Lake discovered a skull in shallow water on the east portion of Mill Lake. At that time, we didn't know who the skull belonged to. Then in April 2007, the remains of a male were found behind a commercial property in the 33600 block of South Fraser Way. Since those two dates, investigators have been able to link the two files. We have learned that the skull belongs to the remains that were discovered in behind the commercial property. Since then, we've been able to identify the male both through medical records and a DNA comparison with family members. It is a male. He is born in 1943. His name is Lawrence Oswald Kaposh. He's originally from Alberta. We have established a timeline. Since we believe Mr. Kaposh traveled to the Abbotsford Aldergrove area in September of 1998. We believe at some point he did live in the Aldergrove area before living on the streets. We've learned that Mr. Kaposh had a serious alcohol addiction, and we believe that addiction resulted in him being and living on the streets. We've also learned that Mr. Kaposh was of no known financial means, and we believe that in the winter of 1998 he was spending a lot of times on the streets here in Abbotsford. The last confirmed contact with Mr. Kaposh was in December 1998, and investigators believed he died somewhere later that month or early 1999. The distance between the two areas is about 2 kilometers. I can tell you that investigators believe at the time of Mr. Kaposh's death that the body was intact, so the skull was still attached. How the skull ended up in Mill Lake is something that's currently under investigation, but I can tell you the possibility that someone moved the skull from the area where the rest of the remains were located is certainly a possibility. I can tell you based on the forensic examination, the cause of death is still undetermined. Although it provided useful information, it's not conclusive. So we're operating on the premise that this is a death that is suspicious, but whether or not he died as a result of foul play or as a result of an accident, we just don't know the answer to that right now. So we have a lot of answers that we're still seeking. We're turning to the public for any information that may assist us in understanding what occurred. We do believe that there's someone likely saw Mr. Kaposh on the day he died in the hours preceding his death. So we're turning to that individual or individuals for any information. So right now we're really missing that piece of the puzzle to help us understand what led to Mr. Kaposh's death. So that being said, certainly the possibility that foul play occurred does exist, but we're also looking at the possibility that this was an accident. We just don't know the answer to that right now. But right now, at the time of Mr. Kaposh's death, that the skull and the bones were together, and we're looking closely at the possibility that the skull was actually removed from the area where the rest of the bones were found. So we're looking closely at that as we speak. The identification of Mr. Kaposh was confirmed both through medical records and a DNA comparison that was done with a family member.